All the second stage tanks now pressurized. Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Torpedo to the jugular. This is Honey Badger Radio. Radio with bite.
Hello and welcome to HBR Talk 383, They Tread. I'm your host, Hannah Wallen, here with Nonsense Annihilator Lauren Brooks and the personification of perceptivity, Mike Stevenson. And we have the Doge in charge in the background, making sure things happen, Brian Martinez. And good night. Or good night. And tonight, I'm going to bed now, guys. I got to work tonight, but
hello,
fuck all
good
that
night.
shit.
Hello, good night, everyone. Hello, good night.
Hey, we
if
have
I
a
don't
Brit in
see you
here. We
tomorrow,
can say hello,
fuck
goodbye. But yeah, we're still back on that treacherous ground of the Human Initiative Veil, with its raging USAIDs infection and the attempted coup that the USAIDs people tried to enact. They wanted to change some things. They wanted to change how you vote. They wanted to change how the government works. They wanted to change what you can say. They wanted to change what candidates, how much you can support a candidate as an individual. They really were quite interested in taking over, right? Wanted to take your place as a voter and usurp it for themselves and keep it away from you, or at least keep you from having the full capacity to judge information for yourself, ensure that you have made your own decisions, and ensure that you have decided which candidates you do and do not want to support. But that's not all, folks. That's not all. For the same low price of funding a non-government agency with your tax dollars that has been working against your interests for decades, you can also get sabotage of the Supreme Court that decides which laws are constitutional and which laws are not. This is, of course,
For the low price of your tax dollars.
yeah. This is of course completely included in the package. No additional charge, no additional taxation unless the Supreme Court can be manipulated into deciding that it's constitutional to, come up with new ways of taxing you. And of course, no representation. But yeah, so that's where we are tonight. We've been looking into this for a little bit. I will remind you, this started with oh, come on, article. There we go. No, I don't want notifications from every website on the internet. Thank you very much. So their secret signal chats and how their chats documented this plot. And the person who exposed it was Data Republican, whose account I have been showing you in the videos that the Data Republican has been posting. And the last thing that we were watching was the Stanford University Summit, where they discussed this project, which is what we are looking at here. The project is referred to the Our Common Purpose project, because it's supposed to be totally inclusive of everyone, right? We all have these goals in common. It's not just their goals for controlling us and controlling our country and ensuring that you can't stop them from taking your money and using it against you. No. It's your goal too. You totally wanted them controlling your money and using it against you. That was totally your absolute goal. This was definitely the way to go, right? So, without further ado, let's get into this thing. The suggestion that the founding fathers didn't know what they were doing when they made their decisions about certain things like gun control, freedom of speech, due process rights, right, equality under the law, and so on. That somehow they were lacking in information, understanding, the expectation that in the future there might be technology that didn't exist at present. That seems to be an underlying theme of the left, to portray the founding fathers as people with no foresight and very little intelligence, people who couldn't possibly recognize that things change rapidly over time, that as soon as you start developing advancements in an area of technology, such as the entire industrial revolution they were in the midst of, that once one new idea comes along and new discovery comes along, it contributes to a shitload of other new ideas and new discoveries, like the Cultural Revolution that they were at the forefront of. Somehow, despite being in the middle of the Industrial Revolution and at the forefront of the Cultural Revolution, they had no idea that despite modern medicine having been so throughout its history, it would result in lengthened lifespans of human beings over time. Because, like I said, the common theme of complaints about how the country works by the left is that the founding fathers were just too dumb to realize that changes might happen in the world after they created the Constitution, and so on. Oh, I'm getting complaints of being robo. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, it's fine. It was only for like 10 or 15 seconds or so.
Okay.
You're totally back to normal now. And yeah, you're right. There's this common assumption that people from the past were like the lowest IQ people we have today. And it's no, the highest IQ people back in the day are much the same as the highest IQ people these days. They just didn't have this wide range of available encyclopedias that we have today, but just because they didn't have access to knowledge that we have nowadays doesn't mean they didn't have wisdom. I mean, they had information technology, but information technology doesn't necessarily make people smarter. Before people even had books, do you know what they did in order to remember stories? They just remembered them. They just stored them in their brain. And because they weren't getting distracted by all these bloody books, they had enough space in their brain to actually remember how to say these things word for word. The actors who did Shakespeare's plays were somehow able to just remember the entire script with like a few days worth of rehearsal. And yeah, before people had computers, believe it or not, they were capable of just remembering information. And yeah, they didn't have Wikipedia, but they had the equivalent of such encyclopedias, because they weren't getting their brain rotted by constant TikTok videos. Like, they were able to devote their time to remembering the most important information, and they were crucially able to put it together, and they were able to learn from the wisdom of ages in ways that people lack nowadays. And it's the same graph between the working class of the past and the working class of the present. and the intellectual class of the past and the intellectual class of the present. It was about the same. It was about the same. Like I say, there's this stereotype that that people from the past were like the children of the present day. Like they all thought the world was flat and shit like this, but they didn't. It was about the same. They might have even been generally wiser because, like I said, they had the available capacity to learn and remember what they needed to learn and remember. Whereas nowadays, people are getting their heads filled with completely useless, hokey shite that's taking over their conscience and making them arguably dumber than anyone has ever been. Like going back to the Stone Age, even Stone Age people were almost certainly, in some ways, far more intelligent than people are these days.
Yeah, there's a degree to which they really had to be smarter back then than people have to be today, simply because of the fact that fucking up had much more dire consequences, and under certain circumstances. We have a lot of safety nets now that didn't exist back then.
Too many
Yeah.
safety in various ways.
Yeah.
Sorry, I could go on about that, but I won't. I'll let you finish your point.
Oh, you can. I don't have a problem with that. One of these days we're gonna have to go through and list all of the safety nets for stupid people that you pay for.
We can start. Can we start with the medical?
Yeah, we can. Because when you think about it, that one's a big one, and it's
arguably the biggest one.
Yeah, it's not even a good safety net. It's more like a leash. It's a leash on the medical profession and the patient.
Yeah,
that is held by the insurance companies who get to charge you money for not paying for your medical care.
Mm-hmm.
But then you don't have that money, so you can't pay for it either.
Right.
Oh yeah. Okay. The list is exhaustive, but let's start with the fact, because Tangled Hierarchy said, "Can you explain some of the ways that there's too many safety nets?" So I want you to think about something. Historically, our culture controlled our mating habits because failure to do so resulted in starvation. Right? Women, if they didn't marry, they would be dependent on their father's family for the rest of their life, or they had better be, at least a little masculine and get out there and work. Right? They would work either at home with their family as part of whatever business their family had created, farming, baking, whatever. And before that, it was mostly farming or hunting and gathering, or they would be a working part of their husband's family. And throwing an unplanned baby into that situation threw a monkey wrench into the whole works. You didn't eat, enough if you didn't have basically the correct supportive situation for the child that you brought into the world. Your child might not survive. And people survived by living in groups, by living in tribes, by having a close community, because they didn't have antibiotics. They didn't have paid for health care. They didn't have much in the way of health care. Right? Herbal remedies were it. And the people who knew that, who knew what the herbal remedies were greatly revered.
It was very much survival of the fittest.
Right. So that was the way that humanity evolved for centuries. And then sometime during the 12th century, this idea of romantic love started getting inserted into the common ideas by the French aristocracy, the women of the French aristocracy. And you can learn about that on gynocentrism.com. Peter Wright has done an extensive amount of research into this, and it's quite a massive amount of information there. So I would look there for more information on how that developed. But when that started to develop, the entire history of human mating practices in the West, the entire history of families being involved in people's marriage decisions, of women either bringing work value or financial value into their marriage, families unifying over marriage, and so on, just kind of went out the window. And it became, you meet someone, you fall in love like it's an accident, rather than building a relationship. And, shortly after that, in terms of all of human history, but it took a long time in terms of human lifespans, the idea of sexual promiscuity being okay developed. And then in the 19th and 20th centuries, that expanded. And during the 20th century, we had this idiotic thing called the sexual revolution. So during the sexual revolution, as this is happening, because unplanned pregnancy was increasing, we had the first safety net put into place. It was welfare in Social Security. Oh, I didn't realize you were an idiot, Tangled Hierarchy. I'm sorry. I thought I was helping you out. But I'll continue this for the benefit of the rest of the listeners. But in any case, the first safety net was welfare, the welfare system. And that was, sort of ushered in under the guise of protecting people from the type of poverty that occurred after the Great Depression. Although
I don't know if that was the first. If we're being technical and literate about it, I don't think that was the very first. I would think what you said, like the introduction of this idea of romantic chivalry, would
that's the first safety net,
like the proto first safety net. And then we come to the fast forward hundreds of years later, and then you get to welfare, where we said, oh no, women don't need no man, so we're just going to kick them out. Well, women didn't say that. It was offered to them on a silver platter.
Yeah.
If you have children and you don't have any other person in your home that's going to, or the father of the children is going to be in the home to protect and provide for these children, then the government will assist you. Yep. Oh, it sounds like a great idea. Let's get the fucking government involved, right? Because they never do anything wrong. Jesus Christ.
Yep. So prior to the idea of romantic chivalry, 100% of marriages were built around this idea of family unity and family cooperation, so that the brides and grooms' families would come together as a team, a larger team. That there's usually some sort of business deal around marriages in the upper classes, and in the lower classes there was at least a building of an extended network, even if it wasn't necessarily, we're gonna link up our sheep farm with your the hay and the straw from your wheat farm. It became a means of families networking with each other to get through tough times. So there's your first statistic. After the idea of romantic chivalry, then you started having this development of people getting together not because their families could work together and their families could become an inter-supported network. but just because they had feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And the worst thing about romantic chivalry is that it pretty much turned men into servants of women, right? The idea was that the woman was the table and the man had to bring everything to it. And that was bullshit. Throughout all of human history, you had a cooperative, collaborative relationship between married couples. They may have a division of labor, but there was labor for the woman too. Not, impress me, make me feel like you are special, and I should look at you instead of some other guy. It was, we've decided to team up together to raise a family. I'm going to do these things and you're going to do those things. And that way everything gets done and we work together and we build our security and we build our happiness. But now you look at today, more children are born out of wedlock than ever before. And if they're not born out of wedlock, there's so many whose parents are divorced that more children end up coming of age in homes that exclude their father.
Correct. And
than do in homes that include their father.
Correct. And then when you look at the divorce statistics, it's 70% of women who are initiating these divorces. And why are they initiating their divorces? Because they weren't happy.
They're
They
bored.
don't feel good. And that's all right. So let's slice it up, right? Because a lot of the times marriages end up in divorce because of finances. Right. Finances is a very big factor in the reason that couples split up. And, I'm not going to go through the whole who spends, we know who it is. It's the women that typically control the finances. Right. But in going back to this topic, it's feelings that tend to lead women to want to separate their household even after they have children, right? Like I can see if a woman, if a couple doesn't have children, right, like that only affects the two of them. And so they may be in an age group where they're young enough to then move on and find, another situation in which they can then move on, get married, procreate, have kids, and blah, blah. Find that happiness, those feelings that they were looking for. But the whole idea of marriage has been completely flipped upon its head from what it used to be. And, we don't do ourselves any service, because the court system, lawyers have found a very, very, very a cash cow in divorcing people and putting them through the court system because we decided to give over marriage rights to the government. So we got the government involved. Okay, great. Here we go again. Government fucking everything up. And so now when you decide that you're not happy or this isn't working or she just spends more money than I can earn and I can't deal with this anymore, then you have to go and get the government involved. And it benefits no one but the government and the court system and the lawyers who then have to, argue against each other. It's ridiculous. You want to talk about a safety net system? Holy shit.
Yeah. Well, and the list of various programs here showing on the screen now, like, just goes on and on 83 federal welfare programs. Like, and we are talking about a lot of these exist specifically because of women making the stupid choice to get laid before they get married and establish a family with a guy. And I don't care if your marriage is legal and you include the government or not. You don't have to do that in my book for you to be married. But all of these programs, like a whole bunch of them, exist specifically because women don't make use of the tools that they have to prevent conception if they're going to fuck around like a $3 hoe.
Yeah, they don't make good decisions, and they lay the blame at the feet of anyone else who's willing to take responsibility for those choices, which is usually men, typically and almost always men. And this is why you have this entitlement that you see in this current society. They just, I don't have to do anything. I didn't do anything wrong. It's your fault. I had nothing to do with it. They just do not understand. It's they are incapable of behaving as a responsible adult because they've never had responsibility thrust upon them.
Yeah. Just the simple responsibility of maybe using some spermicide and a barrier method to double up on prevention, and maybe expecting as a feature of your consent, as a requirement of your consent, hey, use a condom, right? Or and stop me if I sound crazy, not having sex with a guy unless you plan to raise children with him.
Yeah.
Right? Or unless you have made it so that you can't have children.
Right.
There are a few different things you can do. But in any case, this is the problem. We treat women like they don't have any agency, and it's not their fault when they do stupid things, and society needs to clean up their mess for them. The mess being the poverty they created, not the child. Although some women do raise their child to be a mess, and she ends up being the next single mom, creating a mess of poverty, raising a child to be a mess, who grows up to be the next single mom. And sometimes that happens in the space of like 60 years. So many women will not even become grandparents in that amount of time. But some women will become great grandparents in that amount of time. And when you look at this, like you can see on your screen here, just a couple of years ago, which is the data on this is never from the current year, and it's rarely from the previous year. It's usually from 2 years or more ago. But federal spending on 13 largest of these low-income programs account for the bulk of welfare spending, totaling the way they wrote this is really weird. All right, 1,241 billion is 1,241 billion.
Jesus Christ.
We are talking a huge amount of the federal budget. 4 programs, EITC, SNAP, housing assistance, and Medicaid, comprise 80% of that spending. All right, these are things that are used largely by people who live in poverty because they did not plan out the start of their family. One of the best things that we could be doing for men and women, for children and adults, for old and young, rich, poor, government, non-government, is to teach young women that they have that control, and it is their obligation as citizens of a country that spends the tax dollars of other citizens making up for their mistakes. It is their obligation to make the wisest choices they can, and then tell them how to make those wise choices.
Yeah, we like to say that, when it comes to risk aversion, that women are more, they're more, they tend to be risk averted. I don't know, but women do not avoid risk. They do not avoid risk, especially when it comes to their reproductive systems.
No, they just
And
offload it onto other
mm,
people.
right. And so men's tendency towards risk aversion typically only will involve themselves, right? They'll jump out of planes. They'll go live in a forest with, just like be a survival guy, right? They love the risk and the adrenaline. Well, women love the adrenaline push that they get from just randomly fucking guys and say, "Oh, I'm gonna, yeah, just leave it in," and who knows what's gonna happen. That, I believe, uh creates a greater problem for society, because I don't know the statistics on how often it takes to get pregnant, because I've never been pregnant. So but
On
these
average, throughout the month, you have a 20% chance of conception every time you have sex. Obviously, although the rhythm method does not work as good prevention,
Right.
if you were trying to have a kid, there are some times during the month when that number is lower and sometimes during the month when that number is higher. But on average, you start out with only a 1 in 5 chance every time you have sex.
Right.
And obviously birth control affects that as well.
Right. Right. So these hoes just out here fucking, no idea if they're gonna have a husband, someone to be there, even someone slightly in the way that is financially able to help support the child, or if the guy doesn't even want to have a child with you, but they are taking that risk, right? And you know how it ends, because we have, what is it, in the Black community, something like 75% of children are born into fatherless homes. And then what does that do? It becomes a burden on the rest of society. So who, risk to whom?
It's
Risk to whom? Go ahead.
go on. It's long term and short term risk is the difference. I mean, in different ways, men and women can be described as risk takers in different ways. I mean, testosterone is often called the risk taking hormone, and it's what drives men into long term risks, like pursuing certain occupations or pursuing certain big fights like wars. Whereas women, possibly because of estrogen, are more into short-term fights. They're more interested in their man getting into a skirmish with another man. And maybe it explains why men are attracted to long-term partnerships with women, i.e., women who are, virtuous and low body count, and women who give them peace. Whereas women are tend to be attracted to men who give them a short-term burst of dopamine and serotonin, and that's why far too many of them are attracted to very erratic, unpredictable but powerful fucking jugheads or whatever. And we have social and cultural ways of ironing these things out. That's why we tell women, "Oi, fucking sort yourself out and grow up and learn about delayed gratification." And we teach men this too, as we should, because a lot of men, particularly younger men, suffer from this shit too. That's one of the curses of adolescence. Like male and female teenagers alike suffer from this hot-headed
affliction,
impulsive affliction. Yeah, and well, maybe it is a cultural thing. Maybe we do teach teenage boys to control themselves, but in the modern age, there's this distinct lack of teaching teenage girls or even women of any age to fucking wind your neck in. Yeah.
Yeah. And as a result, right, we have this entire political faction that their whole political platform, everything that they do, everything that they say, everything that is a goal of theirs, everything that they want to change in government, everything that they want to change in the culture, it is all built around maintaining a system of female dependence on government intervention funded by other people's tax dollars. Anytime a woman's stupid choices lead to poverty in a household or risk of poverty in a household. And the result of that is, how many again? 80, let me see here, 83 federal welfare programs.
Jesus
83.
Christ.
Not just a few, not just a couple of things that, you maybe help out under the rare circumstance that a woman puts herself in that situation, and nobody else in her family is willing to step up to help her. And see, that's the other thing. It used to be that if a woman made stupid choices and her children were going to be in that starvation situation, her family stepped up. Her family would take her in and take care of her and the children and give her a pathway to redemption through being a working part of the family. They would band together, and that was that. The hardship was still there, but it wasn't as significant as it would be if she was just left on her own, right? But now that we have the government ripping off your tax dollars as a single working person, her family is now daddy government. As Night Motorcyclist just pointed out in the chat, her family, Uncle Sam, the only guy who can be a rich uncle and a poor relation at the same time, who always has one hand out for your tax dollars and the other hand giving them over to women who make stupid choices, and of course the military industrial complex, which is also highly expensive. That's where she turns to for help. And because there are no consequences and nobody to say, hey, that was a dumb idea, you created a poverty situation for yourself and your children, don't do that again. Some of these women will do it over and over again. Not all of them, but enough. And they'll end up with 5 kids by 4 different guys, and all kinds of medical issues, and all kinds of debt. And the next thing you know, you're spending thousands of dollars on one family that the head of the household is a woman and she can't support her family.
Yeah. And it just blows my mind that it is the military industrial complex that is also
Oh yeah, it's one of the most expensive things. I mean, that
right.
Because we have both parties have discovered that they can make a lot of money by investing in aspects of the military industrial complex and then voting to send the country to war. Nancy. um, that's led to quite a bit of financial irresponsibility by the federal government as well. But
Correct. And
this
yet
welfare shit is the primary focus of the Democrat Party.
and yet we still have 75% of the homeless people being, or the veterans being homeless. I don't want to misstate
No,
that.
it's 75% of homeless people altogether are male,
Right.
and
And so
95% of homeless people who are unsheltered are men.
right. And so our military industrial complex does nothing for our military veterans, or not enough. You could slash these fundings in half and maybe make a big enough dent to take care of our former veterans. Not former, but veterans.
Well, there's quite a bit that could be done for veterans that you would think out of all people, the Democrats would have capitalized on that politically, but they really haven't. So in fact, the last person that I know of that ever did anything major for veterans was Trump, when he gave them the right to go outside of the system, the veteran medical system, if they were not getting the care they needed in that system, and still have it paid for. But all of that said, the people whose primary focus is maintaining that system of dependence, they're also the ones who are in charge of the entire Humanitarian Initiative Veil and everything that takes place behind it. They are the primary movers and shakers in the USAIDs infection that we have inflicted upon nations all over the world. And they have exported both American sexual promiscuity and stupidity and American welfare. And also, by the way, the American tendency to kill our children before they're born. Being aborted, if you compare it to the things that the World Health Organization calls the leading cause of death, it outnumbers them as a cause of human death by almost as much as the total of the second leading cause of death on that list, which would be the third actual leading cause of death, because abortion is a cause of death for every aborted child. And, like every single one is a living human organism. And every single one has its life terminated. That is why they use the word termination. We're terminating a life. It is an execution for the crime of being inconvenient to the mother most of the time. So being aborted, women have made being aborted the leading cause of death in the world, worldwide, in the United States, in most Western nations, and worldwide. That is quite an accomplishment. No serial killer has ever done as much. Feminists talk about how violent men are, right? They talk about male violence. They talk about how wars are men's fault and blah, 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 even though female leaders are bigger warmongers than male leaders and have been throughout history. But yeah, they, men are at fault for war. Men are the reasons for violence in the world. Men are the perpetrators of the majority of violent crime. If you counted aborting your child as a means of violent crime, because abortion is a violent act, it kills the target. right? Women would be the perpetrators in something like 99% of criminal cases. Worldwide. Um, they are creating a leading cause of death, and the majority of this is elective abortion. By that I mean abortion that takes place not because there's a health condition at stake, or not because the fetus isn't viable because of its health conditions, but because the woman finds the pregnancy inconvenient. And that's it.
And it's not as though it's not as though if abortion was made illegal and no one ever had any abortions ever again, that would mean we would be left with the now orphan statistic that most deaths are at the hands of males, because it would still only be at the direct hands of males. It's not as if all these war deaths and all these murder deaths are purely at the hands of males, especially given that we have women in charge of governments just as much as we have men in charge of governments, and women are just as responsible for the military-industrial complex and sending all these men to die. And once again, I'm thinking of the near future of what's going to happen to the men in the UK when they all get sent off to die in Russia like the Ukrainians did. But then we have to think about men who kill because women told them to kill. Not just on the government level, but all the way down. And once again, I have to go back down to the Stone Age and beyond, frankly. Because this hasn't been recorded. There's really not any reliable way of recording this. Like, how many times do men kill other men because they were spurred on to do it by women? A lot of people will call me a misogynist for even asking that question, but it is a thing. It's a thing that happens very often. Now, maybe it's men's fault that they fight over women. Maybe it's nature's fault. I mean, it happens in all kinds of species. Like, it does seem to be part of natural selection that men fight over women up to and including the death.
Well, heck, our fifth episode, I think, fifth or sixth, was on proxy violence, a woman's not-so-secret weapon. And we gave examples of different news stories at the beginning, and then we talked about the phenomenon. But when you look at statistics on partner violence, where the partner violence leads to the death of a partner, about 60% is perpetrated against female partners, and about 40% is perpetrated against male partners when the killing is direct. So that's 40% of intimate partner and family, because the statistic is always shoved together. And then when they talk about it, feminists only say intimate partner. But 40% of the time, the perpetrator is targeting a male victim, not a female victim. And yet women look at those statistics, and they don't want to talk about the fact that 80% of homicides target a male victim. They only want to talk about the fact that 60% of intimate partner and family homicides target a female victim, which isn't really as significant of a statistic, and it is the only category of intimate partner and homicides where female victims outnumber male victims, and we don't necessarily have proof that all of that is accurate, because of the fact that when a woman wants to engage in violence against a man, she will often do something more covert, like use poison, where, she might not get caught because the guy maybe dies from what looks like a drug overdose, or is otherwise his poisoning is not detected. Right? There's no suspicion, so there's no testing, or it's something that could have happened without being administered by the woman. Women will drive a man to suicide deliberately, and then he becomes a suicide statistic rather than an intimate partner homicide statistic, because you can't prove that she did that. Women will hire a hitman, and then his homicide becomes a stranger homicide statistic unless the hitman gets caught. And women will manipulate a next partner into eliminating the previous partner, and that homicide becomes a male-on-male interpersonal conflict statistic, because the woman's role in it isn't counted in the statistics. So that 20% difference between men and women, it may be much closer. It may be extremely small in comparison to what we actually know. And unfortunately, there's no way to some of that. There's no way to really measure it, because the evidence is very difficult to obtain, if possible at all.
It's like this meme of don't teach women to defend themselves from rape, teach men not to rape. Well, we already do. Literally everyone everywhere teaches their men not to rape. So, and how about this thing of don't teach men not to kill? Again, we already do. Every society in Earth has some kind of moral code where they teach men not to rape. But how about teach women not only not to kill men, but not to teach men to kill each other? Is that a thing? In any of our modernist societies, or even in any of our religions? I mean, I'm thinking of one or two religions in particular where they teach all kind of things, but they never teach women not to teach their men and boys to go and blow themselves up for the sake of killing mainly other men, and it is mainly other men. Again, it's not just religions, it's all over the world where we do teach men not to kill other men, let alone other women. But we all seem to keep neglecting to teach women not to teach men to kill each other. It's layers, you see, people. It's levels. What about teaching people about teaching people? What about when that crosses over the genders? Have you thought about that? No, not when it means teaching women basic morality.
No, and in fact, teaching women basic morality. This is why I said on Tuesday, misogyny is not real. There is no such thing as misogyny. Women use the word misogyny as a thought-terminating cliche every time the world or the culture or any individual within the culture in the world attempts to teach women basic morality or ethics and hold women accountable for the impact of their behavior on the people around them, the people that it affects. As soon as you say, if your behavior causes a poverty situation, it's not just the guy who is responsible. It's not just the person that you're involved with that's responsible. Your choices matter. Your actions matter. You are at fault when you do a thing and it sets off a chain of events, and the end result of that chain of events is somebody else having a loss or getting hurt or experiencing an adverse condition or circumstance, that is your fault. And when men do that, we impose remedy. Right? We impose punishment that involves restitution of some sort, child support, fines, alimony, confiscation of property, imposition of labor. Right? Sometimes, you could even call it forced labor, because men do go to jail if they don't pay child support, and if they don't have a job. When they get divorced, a judge will say, well, you have to earn minimum wage. You are obligated to have an income of at least that much, and if you do not find a way to obtain it, we will put you in jail. So it is under threat of incarceration that he goes out and earns that money. And it doesn't matter whether you think there are moral reasons for it or not, whether you think it is ethical for the state to do that or not. It is still forced labor. That doesn't change the condition. You can argue justifications, but it is still forced labor. They do not do that to women unless the child is in foster care and the state wants their money. They only do it to men. If the father has custody and the mother is not working and she can't find a job, I've sat in a courtroom and listened to a judge excuse that. We can't put her in jail because she can't find a job. That's not fair. Really? Because you do that to men all the time. Well, they're men. Men are responsible, right? Men have responsibilities, women have rights. That's the way the law works. So, like I said, the people that we're talking about today, the people that came up with this, the people that want to decide how you vote for politicians because they don't like who you voted for, the people that want to decide how you fund political advertisement to get your message out because they don't like the fact that other people might agree with you, they're the ones that their entire political ideology is wrapped around paying women to make stupid choices and then keeping them dependent on government funding that pays women to make more stupid choices so that they can stay in political power by maintaining that dependence. It is essentially economic drug dealers, running the government that want women to be addicted to these social safety nets. The welfare system, the Medicaid system, the Medicare system, the Social Security system, every little or large program, government paying for your birth control, government paying for your child care so you can go to work, as if the expense disappears because you offloaded it to somebody else. Government paying for your food and your electric bills and your housing costs and your car repairs and your refrigerator, but then also giving you a financial stipend because you totally need that on top of everything else, and giving you free medicine and free supplies for your children. So what happens to that welfare check? The night I gave that homeless woman a ride home, and ended up in a section of town where two male baby boomers came out and stood on either side of me and guarded me because I was a white girl, and they thought I would get shot for being white in that neighborhood. One of the things they told me was that the reason I couldn't find any of this woman's friends who she was couch surfing with, because she was homeless, but she had shelter with other women who took pity on her, was because those women had all gotten their welfare checks, so they were all out at the bars.
I was
So,
about to ask, how do you give a homeless woman a ride home? But I see what you mean now. How do you give
yeah,
a ride to whatever sofa she was surfing on at the time? Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's not possible to give a homeless man a ride home, but it is possible to give a homeless woman a ride home because she can qualify as homeless and still have a place indoors where she's safe to sleep every night. Whereas a lot of homeless men do not and will not, and that's not going to change because the way the system is set up, it prioritizes first women with children, then women with no children, then men with children, and finally, if there's any space left at all, men with no children who are not addicts and not mentally ill. So you end up the men on the street are the ones in the worst circumstances with the worst problems, and that's how that. So that helper party, the party of welfare and compassion for your fellow human being, they don't really care about men. They really only care about, they don't even really care about women. They only really care about keeping a set of people dependent on the government in order to use the addiction to those safety nets to keep them voting for that party. And so now we've had this election, the 2024 election, in which the men of the country said, fuck you, no. We're not doing that anymore. We don't like it. We don't want having our money taken by the government to be the norm. We don't want our income to be used to fund stupid choices. We don't want to be ripped off to the detriment of the people that we're supposedly helping. And so we're going to vote in this populist who is going to tear down your systems and throw them out the window. And as soon as he got in there, he started doing that. And what happened? Well, they reacted to him like they would react to a virus. So this summit and this Our Common Purpose program was designed by the makers of the welfare system, the 83 different social welfare programs that are used mostly to pay women to make stupid choices, to keep people dependent on the government so that they'll continue to vote in these people. The system they created is run by bureaucrats who know that their bread is buttered on the side where they don't solve any problems. They just keep people addicted. And they've expanded this model all over the world. The USAIDs infection promoted unwed motherhood, abortion, and the substitution of birth control for common sense sexual behavior. Circumcision as a preventative method to avoid getting AIDS, as opposed to being very conservative sexually and using barrier methods that prevent transmission of bodily fluids between people. All that stuff in nations all over the world, first world, second world, and third world nations. Their actions have resulted in an increase in STIs all over the world. Their actions have resulted in war and poverty and famine. And they're very upset that the current administration has decided to stop them from doing that. And that's why they're doing what they're doing now. So as we talked about last week, like I said, they wanted to change funding. They wanted to change how you vote. They wanted that system where your vote can be overridden by someone else's second choice, and so on. And then this one, established through federal legislation 18-year terms for Supreme Court justices, with appointments staggered such that one nomination comes up during each term of Congress. So essentially, they want judges, even if they are the best judge that ever sat on the bench, rather than us using impeachment and other legal means, other legal recourse against judges when they do bad things. They wanted us to be able to remove good judges that are simply judging whether or not new laws are constitutional. They wanted those to be removed and replaced. Right? And of course, their argument, like I said, is that our founding fathers were too stupid to recognize that modern medicine's improvements in people's health and lengthening of people's lifespans, that pattern might continue in the future and accelerate even in the future, as opposed to stopping at the point in history where they were in the moment and never progressing any further. Right? The Supreme Court holds tremendous power in American society. It is a check on the two other branches of government that also hold tremendous power in American society. So there's nothing wrong with the level of power that the Supreme Court has, but they talk about it as though the Supreme Court is a threat, right, to the sovereignty of the judicial and executive branches of government. They talk about it like it's a bad thing that the Supreme Court can go through and say, no, you can't put that law into effect because it violates the civil rights of the American people. That is their objection, that your civil rights might be protected by a body of judges who are highly experienced, whose appointment was agreed upon by the other two branches of government, the duly elected officials in the other two branches of government. That is their objection. Because apparently inventor Ben Franklin was too stupid to recognize that maybe in the future the current pattern during his lifetime of modern medicine improving human lifespans might result in even longer lifespans than it had resulted in by the time he was alive. No wonder they're paying women to make stupid choices. They're stupid, and they think you're stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the entirety of it. They're so dumb that was their main argument. Here it is. Let me see if I can find it. With increased lifespans since the 18th century, right there. That is a justice may serve for a generation or longer, often decades more than the framers are likely to have imagined. How do you know that? How do you know that Ben Franklin might not have figured out that, or George Washington, the fact that people can get false teeth now means that their nutritional needs can be better met in middle and old age. Maybe they might live longer. Right? The fact that science and technology have given us ways to have cleaner water. The fact that they have given us ways to more effectively grow food. We now have medicine that treats things that we didn't have medicine for 100 years ago. We understand things about the human body that we didn't understand 100 years ago. Gosh, we live longer now than we did 100 years ago. You think that might continue to happen in the future? Nope, there's a cap at 1776, and life expectancy will never get any longer after 1776, people are only going to live to be in their 60s or 70s throughout the entire rest of history, except for a tiny percentage, like 10% of the population. And that's it. Everybody else is going to die.
And allow me to paraphrase, but 20 years ago, something, all men were created equal. but some bitches be crazy. I mean, some bitches do be crazy. And,
Yeah.
you know, and some shit never changes. That shit's never going to change. And you need some kind of contingency in place for the undeniable fact that some bitches be crazy. Do you not?
Yeah, we used to, handle the situation by the community stepping in and assisting the family in various ways. And if the children were in a bad situation because the parent was a bad parent, then the family would rescue the children from that situation, or the community would rescue the children from that situation. Now we have children being stolen from good families and sold to rich families, but if the children are not pretty enough, they get left in bad situations. And that's basically how Child Protective Services works. It's really awful. And we are supposed to fund that too, by the way, guys. Your money goes into that. Your money pays people to run that system and make that happen. Kind of scary when you think about it.
Very.
And again, they think you're stupid, right?
And I want to say, because, we say things like that and people will automatically think that it's like some, some shadow governmental agency that's like sex trafficking kids and, doing bad things to children. No, it's the Child Protective Services right in your own state.
Yeah.
That they are, I'm not going to say that they're overworked or whatever. I'm pretty sure that they are. However, they are overlooking cases in which children are absolutely just just not only abused but vulnerable. And there are times when they can step in and they don't. There's very obvious cases where, the mother's on drugs, but, for whatever reason, they just, well, right, well, we'll just give the mother custody back of the child because the child is in better off care with the mother than the father, who may be off in prison, but the mother is still a fucking drug addict.
Yeah.
It's the Child Protective Services system in this country absolutely needs to be overhauled. I fear for any child that has to go into the system. And you will see, like, if you watch a lot of police body cam videos like I do, the police will make every attempt to try to get someone else to take a child in a situation where the parent has to be incarcerated when there's no other parent or, familial the person around to take care of the child, or any other responsible person to take care of the child. So the police kind of know that they don't want the kids going into the system, yet it is something that they use as a threat to try to get some kind of cooperation from these criminal fucking parents. And
Yeah.
it's just, it's sad. It's sad all the way around.
At the
And
same time, they don't. The state doesn't prioritize the father in
no,
situations when the mother is. You have this, and this is not just the U.S. by the way. The UK does this as well. A woman loses custody of her kids because of her lifestyle choices and putting them in danger. And usually it's after a child has been injured, not
Yeah.
just, somebody calls the cops because the kids are playing outside, but um, the hospital calls the police because the kid came in with an illness or an ailment, a broken arm, something, or an educator has reports abuse because the kid is covered in bruises, or neglect because the kid is coming to school hungry, and then there's an investigation. Even if the parents don't live together, the father has to fight for custody in that
Yeah.
circumstance.
Yeah.
They don't just automatically look at him and say, well, maybe the father should take custody of the children while this is getting sorted out. And in fact, um, it can be proved that the mother is an abuser or a neglector or a combination thereof, and the father can get protective custody after filing for it, and he might still have to fight to keep it. Look for a story titled 7 Years in Hell by me, Hannah Wallen, on avoiceformen.com, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But
And
it's
in the
rage fuel. Be ready to get angry as fuck when you read that story. That happened to one of my best friends, by the way.
and in the meantime, how long does it take before the state gets involved where the child is still stuck in some of these horrific situations?
Well, in that
You know?
family, the ex had gotten together with a new guy. In fact, that's how the divorce occurred. She had a baby by another man. So that was the end of her marriage to the father of her child, her first child. And they had 50-50 shared parenting that they had agreed on. But when she moved in with this other guy, their lifestyle was entirely different than the lifestyle she had with my friend, whose name is Roger in the story, because I didn't give you guys his real name. Roger had to deal with the fact that his daughter was going back to a house that was not clean, that the adults were high quite frequently, that there were illegal drugs in the house, and CPS wouldn't do anything for him. The cops wouldn't do anything for him. The cops called him one day to come and get his daughter because they had been called to the house by stepdad's 6-year-old child because none of the kids could wake up any of the adults. They were so stoned that they had all passed out, and the kids were hungry. And so the 6-year-old dialed 911.
Jesus Christ.
Yep.
6 years old.
Yeah, well, the daughter was 4 at that time, and there was an infant. And so Roger went and got his daughter, and he duly went to Child Protective Services, filed for protective custody, and they said, well, we don't have a police report. So he went to get the police report, and there was none. The cops showed up, handled the situation, and filed 0 paperwork because they were so busy dealing with so many other problems in the Dayton metro area that one just sort of slipped by. Like, it was taken care of. The kids were safe because the daughter had been sent to the father's house, and other family members had done all the pickups. So a few months later, the stepdad calls Roger up and says, come get your fucking daughter. Turns out that he had beaten her black and blue.
Jesus.
And so stepmom in Roger's household, who is Bridget in the story, she had the wherewithal to take pictures of the child's battered and bruised face while she was still tear-stained, and you could see the fear in her eyes because an adult had just assaulted her.
Yeah.
Like, this wasn't discipline. This was a beating. And that's what got him custody. And for the next 7 years, The biological mother of this child dragged that family through the court system, the bowels, the underbelly of the family and criminal court systems, with a combination of false criminal allegations and ridiculous motions. That's the case where I sat in the courtroom and listened to a judge say the mother didn't have to pay off her $8,000 in arrears for child support.
Wow.
The Child Support Enforcement Agency had threatened to go after the father for not paying early 1 month because he changed jobs and he could only pay on time on the due date for his child support instead of early. They threatened to go after him and jail him for not paying early over like $150, a payment of $150. But she could be $8,000 in arrears. And it was, not really that big of a deal. And so, that's not the only case. A couple of years ago, I had somebody write to me, and I was going back and forth in communication with that individual, trying to help him navigate the legal system in New York as he tried to get protective custody of his child because the mother was crazy. And I mean, she was hallucinating and dealing with delusions and all kinds of crazy, right? And the court, instead of giving him custody and having the mother go get help, ordered him to let the mother live in his home. Even though they were separated, they were no longer together. And while he was at work, that mother stabbed the daughter to death. I think that this is the stuff that happens in these kind of court cases, where the state doesn't intervene because the abuser or the threat to the child is the mother. And the mother ends up doing something horrible or exposes the child to something horrible.
Yeah, I just watched a video, like an interrogation video, which just took the fucking soul out of me. So this mother, if in scare quotes, um, just to make a long story short, um, she's a drug addict. I think the whole family really was, involved in drugs, meth to be particular. Um, but she basically shot her 6-year-old child 9 times in the backseat of her car. They pulled her over, rear window shattered, blood all over the place. Child was in the trunk. And when they, fast forward, so when they went to interrogate her, her response was, well, I was raped. I told you I was raped. And that's why that's the excuse she was using as far as like the blood splatter inside of the car, whereas there was also brain matter. And
So the rapist fucked her brains out?
there was no rapist. There was
Right.
no rapist. I'm fully
I'm sure of it.
not believing that there was any kind of rapist. But yeah, no. So they went back to the apartment. She put a load of clothes on. I mean, they found like the child's booster seat in one garbage dump, and like with homework that had the child's name and her name written on it. And so even they had all of this they had all of this. And so they're sitting there talking to this woman, and she's like, well, but I was honest with you, and I told you I was raped. And it was just like the this just in I don't even know if entitlement is the right word for it, but it's just this excuse that I was raped. Something happened to me. Nothing happened to my child. She actually was the one who shot the child
Yeah, it's
9 times.
it's like ollie ollie income free, right? Um, women think that or no tag backs. You know, say
Yeah, yeah,
calling rape is an action and thought terminating event that, well, if I cry rape, you can't do anything
yeah. You
about,
can't.
you can't hold me accountable for anything,
Yeah,
even if it's not related to my claim, even if it has nothing to do with my claim. Whether or not the child was shot had nothing to do with whether or not she was raped.
yeah,
And it's certainly not an excuse. Like, even if she had, women will do this with abortion too. Well, they want the ability to abort the child if they've been raped, and that's an excuse to kill the child because they were a victim of sexual violence. The child didn't rape them,
hmm
right? The child's not guilty of anything, so the child should not be sentenced to death for that, right? But yeah. Um, so this argument regarding Supreme Court that judges have too long of tenure in the Supreme Court, and it means that we can't get rid of judges that are bad judges that shouldn't be in there. Let's just do a simple Google search for some information. Congress has the sole authority to impeach and remove Supreme Court justices as established by the U.S. Constitution. Right? So, if Congress puts a judge into place, the president nominates a judge, the judge gets voted in, and the judge is making judgments and engages in behavior that is unconstitutional, unethical, arbitrary, as opposed to following the law and so on. Congress can then take back. No takebacks? Well, not in this case. Right? Congress can decide that a judge is behaving so badly that they have to be removed. The House votes to impeach. The process moves to the Senate, which has the sole power to try all impeachments. They need 67 out of 100 to convict and remove the justice from office. It's a high threshold, and it makes it extremely difficult, but it is a process for removing bad judges. So this idea that the judge's tenure is too long because if we get a bad judge, there's nothing we can do about it, is bullshit. So there's already a check on these judges. So this lifetime appointment, there's no reason to change that. There's no reason to object, basically. And then what do they say? Because the judges are not all in lockstep. That's a good thing.
yeah.
It is a good thing that you have to work hard to convince the judges that there shouldn't be an overwhelming majority in most rulings. But yeah, Mike, what were you going to say?
I mean, in light of all this, it's not looking good for Ketanji Brown Jackson. If you want to be a competent judge, you need to be able to tell me what a woman is.
Yeah, that is true.
Without being what a biologist is, given that literally half of your cases involve at least one woman. Most of your cases involve at least one woman. So before you pass judgment on either a defendant or a plaintiff who happens to be a woman, you should be able to tell me what one of those is. But I get the feeling this is going to get twisted in directions that people generally don't want. Much like Trump has tried to get all sorts of shit pushed through, and he keeps getting some judge somewhere in some state, not even a Supreme Court justice, just any judge anywhere in any state can be like, no, that hurts my feelings, so we're not doing it.
Yeah.
And that makes me think, if anyone wants to, sorry, that's my food. If anyone wants to impeach a Supreme Court justice, I presume it's going to come down to some other judge anywhere in any state who's going to say, no, it hurts my feelings.
Yeah, they won't be able to do that one. This power has been in existence since the start, and in fact, as Meredith G pointed out, it used to be regular practice to impeach Supreme Court judges, federal judges, and so on. All federal judges can be impeached, and they don't have to commit a crime. So, if a federal judge tries to rule that the Senate can't impeach a Supreme Court judge, the Senate can then the House can then vote to impeach that judge as well, and the Senate can then have a hearing on that judge. And if that judge is then removed from office, then the point is moot, isn't it? So they do have that power. They do have that capability. It's not easy. You have to get most of them to agree, and it shouldn't be easy. It should be very hard because you don't want them doing it at the drop of a hat. But I mean, hell, they did it to the president of the United States, like they were sneezing in response to an allergen, right?
Yeah.
All he does is walk into the room, and all of a sudden Nancy Pelosi has a fit. Impeach! 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 Bless you, Nancy. Bless you. Bless you very much.
I just have to, if I can just take a second and say, Meredith G, I love you. I love everything you have to say. You are a bright spot on humanity. You make me believe again that there are people. I mean, not that these people don't, my co-host and whatever. But
it is difficult sometimes when you watch the chat.
Are you really Meredith G? Because
I don't care if she is or isn't. I love her, and I'm gonna take her home, and I love her.
You're the kind of woman that gives us hope for the future of humanity.
Yes, absolutely.
Many of us come to HBR because there are a scant few women over here who give us hope for humanity.
Yes, and you are absolutely one of them. So I just appreciate you so much, and yeah. I'm not glazing. I'm not glazing.
Here we go. But yeah, it is nice. It is nice that we do have some women in our audience who are not Carly Ellison.
Yes.
Who are like the exact polar opposite of Carly Ellison. Intelligent people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they want life terms abolished and term limits to be imposed. So what are term limits for in terms of elected officials? They're to limit the power of the people to keep in position individuals with whose service they are happy. That is the point of term limits. They want the establishment to be able to switch out players in the government in order to impose their will more easily on the people and prevent the people from striking back by putting populists into position that might give more power to the people, thereby taking more power away from the political establishment. This is the ultimate sin where the establishment is concerned. They hate the idea that might happen, and they want to do everything in their power to prevent it. And the more power they have to prevent it in their minds, the better. One of the means by which they obtain the power to prevent it is by limiting your ability to keep someone in position who does the job you ask them to do. Supreme Court justices included, but also senators, congressmen, presidents, your state politicians, your local politicians, all of them. But you know who doesn't have term limits, whose terms these people never propose limiting? And that one guess. It should only take one guess. And I will tell you the answer, right? It is the people who write shit like this. The bureaucrats that you didn't vote for, that are appointed by elected officials to do a job that they keep for 30 to 50 years, or in the military, possibly longer. And then advance in their department or their agency until they develop a level of political power that is beyond any of the branches of government, and often is out of the reach of any of the branches of government. All they can do is defund or eliminate the entire branch the individual is in. It is difficult to fire a Washington bureaucrat. It is difficult to remove an appointed official. And it is difficult to eliminate a job that has been created as payment for somebody getting elected into office. And at the same time, they have this condition. For instance, after Title IX was established, Title IX is the law that says that you cannot discriminate against one sex or the other in the school system. After that was established, there was an office for enforcing it within the education department. And that office had to maintain its usefulness and necessity. So once it was pretty much clear and present that discrimination in schools in terms of women not being able to take certain types of courses or certain majors in college and stuff like that that was over, and there wasn't really anything for them to enforce. They went into enforcing it in sports. All of a sudden, it's not about whether women can become doctors; it's about whether women can become basketball players, right? And rather than enforcing the elimination of quotas to discriminate against one sex, they began enforcing quotas to discriminate against the opposite sex. So they eliminated, throughout the 1990s, in a lot of universities, men's Olympic wrestling and men's Olympic gymnastics, because they couldn't get enough women interested in athletic participation at the university level to offset, right, to equal the number of men participating in sports. They didn't have women's tackle football, and they couldn't get women to play powder puff football, which is not tackle. Usually it's like flag football or touch football. So they had to come up with something to offset the numbers on the football teams, but there was a men's gymnastics team and a women's gymnastic team. Volleyball didn't get enough people involved. All of the other sports that they had, both sexes participated in, so the only way was the elimination of some male sports. And they weren't going to eliminate the football teams because most universities take in money from that. They profit from that. So it goes to pay for their other athletic programs' existence. You owe your football and your basketball teams at your university for the existence of your volleyball teams, your baseball teams, and softball teams, unless your university is a big baseball school. The entirety of women's sports is paid for by men's football, basketball, maybe baseball, maybe hockey at some schools. Night Motorcyclist mentioned ice hockey, but it's paid for by tickets sold to men's competitive sports, where at that particular university, scouts for professional athletics might show up, and it's been that way throughout the history of women's sports, right? But a lot of men's sports got eliminated or reduced. A lot of schools just don't have a men's gymnastics team or a men's Olympic wrestling team. And I say Olympic wrestling because I don't want people thinking of World Wrestling Entertainment, but actual grappling. And as a result, we've lost a lot of competitiveness among young adults going into competition for the actual positions in the Olympics on the Olympic team. But to justify their jobs, they did that. And once it got to the point where there wasn't enough for them to enforce in sports, they'd done their damage, then they went into the sexual relationships of students. And the Dear Colleague letter came out in 2011. And before that, there was the Clary Act, forcing schools to document and track sexual conflict, essentially, between students at the schools, even when the behavior wasn't criminal. Night Motorcyclist, I could just differentiate by calling it real wrestling as opposed to WWE. But that would make some WWE fans mad.
It's the WWF now. Sorry,
did it go back to WWF?
No. I'm sorry. Yeah, WWE. I'm so used to it being called the WWF because I'm old. But
a lot of us were pretty off when they were forced to change their name. I have a shirt that was my husband's that has two pandas on it, and one of them is holding a chair to hit the other one.
Somehow the pandas were considered more important than the pro wrestlers.
Yes.
Well, they were there first, okay? The pandas were there first, so they deserve, I don't know, whatever kind of protection.
The pandas
they don't wear t-shirts. They don't bounce basketballs. They don't ride barrels over Niagara Falls. They must die. The pandas must die. They must die. Except for Mike.
It's not that they must. It's that they're going to. Like I know we often go on about how humans are the next extinction event. A lot of species have died out because of humans, and a lot of them I am going to feel sorry for because it probably was our fault as a general species, but not pandas. Pandas just can't fucking figure out what the fuck to do. I know
literally the only reason they haven't died out is because of human intervention.
And that goes right back to my comment about the social safety net, right? Because if there wasn't human intervention with all of these medical things, right? It just, nature would just take its own course.
Yeah.
And who's to say that that's wrong, right? If you believe in a God, don't you believe that that's God's will, right? I mean, so it's just crazy. It happens all of the time. So
I'm not going to say that human intervention in nature is against God's will. That's if you read your Bible, you know that God gave human beings dominion over nature. That was part of the deal. And it's why it's not a sin to take medicine when you get sick, and why it's not a sin to farm animals and to use breeding to genetically modify them over time and so on, right? But there comes a point, like if you are endangering human life to protect and preserve species that evolved to survive in a environment that no longer exists, in a world condition, a worldwide environment that no longer exists. That's I wouldn't call it a sin, but it is stupid. It's not a moral thing. It is it's just showing, doing it for show, trying to look good instead of actually being good. But this is essentially, people fall for that kind of argument all the time. It's why the people making these arguments regarding the Supreme Court think that they can talk you into the idea that the founding fathers were wrong when they made that a lifetime appointment, by arguing that that legislators can't do anything about it if the judges are bad, that the founding fathers didn't anticipate that the pattern of human lifespan expansion that modern medicine of the time was achieving would continue in the future, and that it's better to have the Supreme Court shuffle going on all the time than it is to have stability in the Supreme Court once judges have been appointed. As if the process of appointment isn't very careful. Right? Their entire argument, in other words, relies on you being too stupid to figure out that the argument is full of holes.
It's clever of you to pull it back to the main topic, while I was sat here thinking of continuing to talk about pandas. But I'm gonna make a series of oscillations.
I mean, I was almost there too.
Eventually bringing
you
it back.
ocelot.
I'm gonna make a series of oscillations and also bring it back to the main topic, right? Species die out all the time, right? Throughout the course of the Earth's history, 99% of the species who ever existed have gone extinct. But that doesn't mean that we as humans should go ahead and kill a bunch of species, because it takes millions of years for a species to evolve, and evidently it takes tens of years for a species to die out, like Yangtze River dolphins, like the black rhino, like evidently pandas eventually, and yeah, that does kind of suck. It does kind of seem offset that it can take decades for a species to go extinct, whereas it takes millions of species of years for other species to fill that niche. So that does seem kind of offset. And the environmentalists among us will say, well, the fact that all these species are going extinct on the watch of humanity and its domination of the earth suggests that the broad range of animals existing on Earth is diversifying. Like there will be so fewer different kinds of species on Earth than there were before we took over, before this conquest of human beings. But then you have to ask, okay, well, you seem to be assuming that diversity is a strength, and you can see how I'm slowly drawing back to the main thing. Why do we need such a diversity of species. And you can say, well, for its own sake, I mean, it's interesting that we have pandas and humpback whales and all these obscure species of springbok across Africa. But at the same time, you can say, well, right, what happens if they do disappear? What would be the worst possible outcome if, like, 1,000 different species of the weakest organisms on Earth happen to die out? Like, what's the worst that could happen? It'll get filled with another niche, and yeah, it might take 1 million years for other species to fill those niches. But in the meantime, there's actually other species that are quite willing to fill those niches. I mean, someone else is going to eat the bamboo. If it's not the pandas, well, I guess no one else eats.
Well, humans.
I
think. Have you ever been to a Chinese restaurant?
Yeah, we eat bamboo all the time.
I think it's such a short-sighted argument when we talk about, oh my God, this animal's gonna go extinct. Well, when the other people, like the leftists, I don't want to say that, I don't want to like generalize them, but you'll have the global climatist people saying, oh my God, well, if the cows don't fart, then we're just gonna. It's ridiculous because you are arguing against something. It's going to happen anyway, and so the world will not stop existing if humans don't exist, right? The earth, everybody's arguing against, like, or for their place on this earth, right? We don't own it. We're just here. So if the conditions of Earth become so untenable for human life to exist, then humans just won't exist. And it might just not include any other animal that is here. If the sweet meteor of death hits New York City, then there will still be cockroaches, there will still be insect life, there will still
It depends
be
on the size of the meteor.
well, correct. You have to pray harder, Hannah.
It really does depend on the size of the meteor.
Yes, but
potential extinction events that would turn the Earth into a molten ball of fire. So,
right.
but
Right, but if we're playing in my playground,
the Earth and its environment and its conditions only matter to humans insofar as human existence continues.
Correct.
If we are no longer here, then it doesn't matter to us, right?
Correct. That's what I'm saying. Right.
The thing is, when it comes to environmental stuff, what matters to humans is the truth. What is real, what is factual, what is solid, what is documented, and so on. And what we're dealing with in terms of these environmental arguments is differences of ideology between scientists. And so when you look at statements made on the authority of environmental science, you have to also look at the associations, the where the money comes from, what the individual is advocating as a solution, and so on. Because you have two distinct groups of people. You have the people that say, hey, it is a problem that there is an island of plastic in the middle of the ocean, and we know most of the plastic comes from China. We need to make China more responsible for how they're trashing the ocean, and that's reasonable as long as they can prove that that's true. Then you have the people who have been telling us every 10 years for the last 100 years or so that in the next 10 years all of the fish in the ocean are going to die, and you need to become communists to solve that problem. And yet there are still fish, and the world is not communist. And they're the same people that say, well, just because all the plastic comes from China doesn't mean that people in California shouldn't have to give up their plastic in order to put a stop to that. Right? As if it will have any effect. You have to look at what are they offering as a solution to the problem. Is the solution related to the cause? Is what they are suggesting based on evidence or based on... I actually had the argument told to me that the entire world should be on a system of carbon credits, that you use up your carbon credits, you can't have more meat, you can't drive your car, you can't heat your house and stuff like that. Except developing nations like India and China should get a pass, even though they're the ones producing the most pollution during their development. So it wouldn't really make much of a dent in the problem if developed nations that are not producing a significant amount in comparison reduce their amount by an insignificant number by denying people normal things like food and heat and transportation. But they want that to be the solution because it's fair. Well, it doesn't solve the problem. It won't reduce the humanity-based carbon footprint, and it won't change the future, even if doing so would change the future.
But it won't.
So what's it for?
It won't.
If it's not, if the purpose isn't to change the future, because clearly they're not achieving that by what they're doing. So the purpose has to be something else. What is that purpose? Well, the purpose is control over people. That's not scientific, but they present it as science. So you really have to be careful when you get involved in environmentalism. And I learned this growing up simply because I was involved. I was one of those kids that would go out with a group of people and pick up all the trash at the park, and make sure that it all went to the proper places, recycled when I could. Eventually learned that relying on industrial recycling doesn't actually solve any problems, right? Not throwing things away because you can still use them solves some problems. Not buying disposable things when you can buy things that last solves problems. But sending things to a recycling plant to have them broken down and made into other things doesn't necessarily solve any problems, because it results in further pollution in the process of recycling that plastic. It's definitely not a simple discussion to have.
It really isn't. And I'm sorry, Doc, go ahead.
Okay. And on the subject of extinction events, which very often happen because of asteroids or meteoroids or anything hitting us from space, which is not something that happens with regulated frequency. It could happen in the next 100 years, the next 1,000 years, the next million years. If a massive asteroid hits the Earth like it did in the dinosaur times, in theory, all mammal species are dead, almost all, and it'll all start back up from microbial filth all over again, and that'll take fucking billions of years to get back to where it was. And do you think the pandas are going to stop that? Do you think the fucking humpback whales are going to stop an asteroid from hitting the Earth? No. The only species that can prevent that kind of extinction event is human beings, and especially in the next 100,000 million years. We're the only species anything close to the technology to actually prevent that from happening.
Yeah, I don't know.
So if the pandas have to die, if the humpback whales have to die so that humans can live, it's going to be a net positive, isn't it?
Well, I mean, then again, we go back to what an extinction level event even means. Are we talking about extinction of the human race or extinction of any life on the planet, right? Because the planet is going to survive whether or not we are here. And that's just a fact.
That's
It's
it's
just
not.
a
It's
fact.
not a fact, right?
Life
That's the thing.
is one.
There have been instances in history where the entire Earth was covered in ice. There have been instances in history
And there
where
will
the
be
entire
again.
Earth was covered in land and then the water was all underground, right? And things have survived. But there's been no instance in history where all of life has survived the entire planet becoming a molten ball of burning land, burning substance. And there are
Well, no.
objects moving in space that can cause that. And there are objects moving in space that come close to us in terms of space, not in terms of obviously your house being close to the next door neighbor or even us being close to the moon, but close enough to be scary eventually.
Correct.
And there have been simulations and explanations. Like I'm fascinated by this stuff simply because there is some evidence that the comet that killed off the dinosaurs and caused, God, I can't think of the name for the time period when the weather was so extreme that it was damn near impossible to survive, and if you didn't live on a mountaintop or have a safe in an underground place to live, you were fucked. But there's a comet that its tail contains smaller particles than itself that comes around periodically, like every 10,000 years or so. That if that has more of a direct interaction, not even a full impact, it doesn't even have to impact, that could cause that. Or if it does impact, the planet is gone. There is no survival of the planet. It's not just humans going extinct because we died off and didn't reproduce. It's everything is gone. There is no Earth. There is
Right.
no moon. There is nothing. There is an asteroid belt.
And just to oscillate this right back to the main subject, it's not women who are going to save the Earth from any of these extinction events. It's going to be men. It's not women who build the fucking spaceships who are going to blow that asteroid apart and send it in several different directions. It's going to be men. So, I mean, to quote Camille Paglia, if women were in charge, we would all still be living in grass huts, and we would be no more use to the Earth than the fucking pandas.
Yep. If such a threat comes along, it will be men that will engineer a way of deflecting whatever body in space is hurtling toward us that might destroy the planet. And
I'm
it'll
sorry.
also be men that'll engineer a way to survive whatever apocalyptic events occur because of the near myth.
I'm sorry, but Katy Perry and Gayle King and whoever the rest of these bitches are, they have something to say to you, Mike. They
Yeah.
were women, and they
famous astronaut Katy Perry, yes.
Yes. They are going to save humanity. They're going to save us all from
by getting nabe bobs out.
Right.
Women going into space and the hullabaloo about women going into space happened after it was so commonplace to go into space and do spacewalks and so on, that we have living environments in space where people stay for not just a few weeks, but more than a year, sometimes more than 2 or 3 years. And also, the first person with a mobility disabilities, I believe someone in a wheelchair, in fact, went into space. So we're talking, like it's an accomplishment when men do it, right? Men went into space when they weren't sure if they could survive coming back, and they weren't sure if the things that were provided to them to help them survive outside of the Earth's atmosphere would work. Like, they were relatively sure, but they weren't 100% sure. And where one mistake could result in a horrible death. And they didn't know what they were going to find on the moon. They had ideas. They didn't know what they were going to run into. They didn't know what was going to happen when they tried to take back off from it, for sure.
We never went to the moon.
Right?
Sorry, we never went to the moon.
They didn't know if they were going to be irradiated to death in space, but yet they went, and they made it easier and easier to survive.
They went somewhere, but they didn't go to the moon.
They made it easier and easier to break the Earth's gravity hold, and they made it easier and easier to take the next step, which was building a space station, and people living in the space station made it easier and easier to do experiments in space and to learn from people's experiences in space. And then after all of that was accomplished, women were like, yeah, we could do this. Right? Every single time. And then, of course, there's all this hullabaloo. Oh, look at what strong, independent women they are. They did a thing that men have been doing for decades, that men paved the way for at the risk of death. But yeah, they're totally strong, independent women who don't need no men, right? Except all the men that came before them and paved the way for them to do the thing that they're getting such great credit for. And I hate to be like that. But let's put things into perspective, okay? It's not that it's not special to be an astronaut. I fucking couldn't do it in a million years. But it's not suddenly more special today than it was yesterday because the person doing it is a woman.
Okay, there we can agree.
I'm glad we got on this whole tangent because of the WWF.
Yeah.
Yeah. and they say pro wrestling doesn't help.
Are you kidding? It's one of the best outlets for frustration. It's a soap opera for men and masculine people with any level of masculinity.
You remember Glow Wrestling? Do you remember the Glow ladies?
Oh my God, yeah.
Yes. So what happened to them? For some reason, we only focus on the WWF. It must be the patriarchy.
Oh yeah, it's totally the patriarchy. But yeah, so but to bring it back around here, what we are looking at, right? What we looked at last week, the enlarging the House of Representatives, right? Altering the Electoral College, introducing ranked choice voting, amending or repealing and replacing the law that mandates single-member districts for the House, and then reducing. Oh yeah, changing the way that redistricting is done, so they have more control over it. Then also regulating spending and making it so that you risk retaliation if you donate to a political campaign as an individual. And right now, if I were to go to the Republican Party website and I wanted to buy a Make America Great Again hat, not only do I have to give them my name, my address, my phone number, all my identifying information, all of which, except for things like my financial information or social security card or anything like that. But the rest would be published. It's it's available to the public. Also would have to disclose my employer for some reason. And they want to increase the transparency there, which what they're saying means they want enough information to retaliate against you for supporting a candidate they don't like. And they want to make it so that Supreme Court justices are not appointed for life. So they basically want to change everything because they're mad that men voted in a populist that began reducing the size of the bureaucracy, the unelected bureaucracy, and preventing it from using your money, your tax dollars, laundering your tax dollars through the Humanitarian Initiative Veil by inflicting USAIDs on other countries to do jack shit for the people there and retain quite a bit of money while interfering in their local cultures in a way that is detrimental to the people they are purporting to serve. And there you have it. That is how that works. That is what this initiative is that they were talking about here. So next week we will continue to wrap it up with how this traces back to the billionaires that Data Republican is talking about, is accusing not regular folks like you and me, but people who make their money by controlling large swatches of the population, controlling what you spend, how you spend it, and how you live in order to benefit as much as humanly possible from your labor and the compensation you receive for it.
And just to differentiate us from the mindless communists who categorize the billionaires as a singular category of people who should all be opposed. Yes, no, you'll have seen the meme of the diagram. Like, the wrong enemy is the rich. The right enemy is this other axis of the rich and the poor who want to use the government to control us. There are some rich people who don't want to use the government to control us. They just want to do honest work for honest pay. Some billionaires got there through honest work for honest pay. I don't want to name any because honestly I don't fucking know. We're talking about the rich people who are using their influence for evil. And yes, there are poor people who use what influence they have collectively for evil, and everything in between. It's the people who use their influence for evil who are your enemy. They're called communists. Well, they call a whole fucking bunch of things, but it's, that's one of the rich isn't the enemy. The fucking control freaks are the enemy.
Yep,
and even
that is true.
It's still not as simple as that, because some people want to control for good reasons, and I don't have time to get into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've got a reminder in the chat to read the Super Chows, and I responded, but I'm looking at the Super Chow channel, and nothing new is showing. So if you sent a Super Chow while I was giving my end spiel, it hasn't come through yet. It's been stopped for some reason from going through, and I don't understand why. Nothing has come through, actually. Not even the Super Chows we usually get. I have not seen a single one. And I haven't seen any Super Chats either. No paid Rumble rants. A lot of activity in Rumble. But not very much in terms of financial activity. So I don't know what's going on there. and I don't know how long it will take to go through if one has gone through. I can read it off in the after show if it does, and then read it off in the main show next week. But there's nothing. Nothing is in the Discord. I don't know if Brian can see something in the background that I can't see that he could send to me. But and Discord just updated on my computer right before the show. So there should not be a problem. I should have that. And it's not coming through. So that's 2 people that said that they sent. So Brian says there's no new Super Chow showing either. That's bizarre. Why aren't they going through? That's so. What we'll do then is in the after show.
You guys could just post it as a regular chat, and we'll just trust you that it's the one you paid us for. Unless you,
I mean, yeah, we could do that.
Waiting until the after show. I don't know.
Yeah, you could do that. I will definitely, though, if they show up, I'll read them in the after show. This is what we're going to be going over in the after show. Because I like to torture the patrons occasionally. So this is from Japan Today. From violence to sexism, the manosphere is doing real world harm. So there we go. Feminists want to tell you what's good for you. And this is how they're going to do it. Yeah, they want to tell you what's good for you because they know better than you do what's good for you. And of course, we all know that feminists have men's best interests. I can't do it. I was going to say, I can't do it, guys. Sorry. We all know that feminists have men's best interests in mind.
If they were so, if they were so good at fixing men's problems, then why are they still complaining about men?
But patriarchy hurts men too.
More patriarchy. Shut
They
the
just
fuck
don't have enough power or enough influence. So we just need to give them more power and influence.
and money.
And
money.
And then they'll finally help men. How much power and influence? Well, they won't tell us. We just need to keep giving them more.
Yeah. With that, this stuff still hasn't come through. I'm just gonna call it. We'll have to read them later tonight and next week, and we'll figure it out. Because I am not seeing a single.
Do we have a show next Thursday's Christmas Day, isn't it?
We might not have a show then.
Yeah.
Because I might be working a 16-hour shift from 11:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on Christmas Eve. So
and then New Year's is going to be on the same schedule. So
yeah. Why does it? This seems like then next year. I believe Tuesday. I think it gets in a day earlier every year, if I remember right.
Do we have a show on Tuesday, Brian? Are we doing a show on Tuesday?
I don't know if can he respond. I don't know.
He can respond, but the audience can't hear him. So, yeah. So if we don't, we won't.
Okay,
we won't have an HBR talk next week because I'm gonna call it now because I'm relatively certain. There's been a not a coup at my workplace, but one manager moved on to another company, and we got a new manager. And in the interim, we had a snafu with the application that the managers use to put names on the schedule. And most of the time, that's not a problem because most of the time the schedule is the same every 2-week period. And you already know when you're going to be working because it was the same schedule you had the last 2-week period. But since it's the holiday, and I work with intellectually disabled adults, and intellectually disabled adults that live in care homes usually go to some sort of daytime activity, whether it's a job or a day program. those close on the holidays. And so there's usually a first shift that comes out of nowhere on the holidays that, about a month ahead, they get somebody to fill that shift. And at my workplace on Thanksgiving, we discovered that didn't get done. It didn't happen. So the manager had that shift filled, but nobody owned up to taking the shift. So I picked it up and did the work. And that's probably what's going to end up happening on Christmas too. So there you go. It's possible that I might not. And if that happens and there is a stream, I might participate. But there will not be an HBR Talk next Thursday. So 2 weeks from now, we'll pick back up with the rest of the video. I'll remind you guys where we are again. And then we will get to find out more about this tweet and the represented video. So we will not see you next Thursday, but we will see you next Tuesday.
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas to all.
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa. Love you all.
And to all, a big fight. I mean, a good night. Night all.
Good night, y'all.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.